rule number 20 in the rules of conduct. Now, this is one of the new rules of conduct. So we've all been used to the fact that there were 19 rules of conduct in Schedule 1 of the Property and Stock Agents Act, or in the old Property, Stock and Business Agents Act. So, but now in the new Property and Stock Agents Act, the rules of conduct, or Schedule 1, has an additional 3. Now, one of them was repealed, so 3 more. We're still sitting at, I think it was number 15 that's been repealed. So let's look at number 20, which is an agent to pay rental income monthly to the landlord. Now, we're getting a lot of questions around this, and this is the actual wording of the rule. So the clause out of Schedule 1 is an agent must pay rental money for each calendar month, less any authorised expenses, owing to a landlord under a residential tenancy agreement at the end of each calendar month, unless instructed otherwise by the landlord. Now, that unless instructed otherwise by the landlord, that's the part that, if you're holding money back to pay rates or strata levies or repairs and maintenance invoices, or, for any reason that you're holding money back at the end of each calendar month, then you would have that in your agency agreement, or you would have it in a written format via an email, perhaps telling you that, yes, you can hold that money back. Even this would come into if you pay mid-month, if your landlord has requested that you pay, account to them once a month, mid-month, then that's your otherwise instructed by the landlord, because that's your agency agreement saying that you pay out on a mid-month basis. Now, let's have a look at the example that came up this week. The question was, somebody has paid rent in advance. So, some people, to get the property they want, they will say, I'll pay 6 months in advance, I'll pay 3 months in advance, some people like to plan better, and they, their own financial status, and they go, well, I will pay 2 months, 3 months, 6 months in advance. Now, that's fine, they can do that. However, if the landlord instructs you to pay all of that money across, then you are paying all of that money across. Because remember, what this clause is about is as close as possible, other than monies that you are holding as instructed by the landlord to payment of other bills, you are paying rental money across for each calendar. At the end of each calendar month, you are clearing your trust account out. Okay, so if you've got 6 months worth of rent, then you are paying 6 months worth of rent over to the landlord. Now, yes, I'm hearing some of you go, oh my goodness, this is really scary. So, yeah, and from an agency perspective, we can sit back and go, yeah, that is really scary. And I kind of agree with you here in terms of, what if the tenant wants to leave? What if the landlord wants to sell? What if, and they sell and, something happens and the money's over to the landlord and the tenant needs to get some of it back, or wants to get some of it back, or deserves to get some of it back. There's an issue. Well, that's the agreement. There is an agreement signed between the landlord and the tenant. That happens to be known as a residential tenancy agreement, or a lease. And that, that gives us all of the guidelines on how money would have to come back or go forward in terms of that money being paid forward. Rule number 20 is about, on every calendar month, any money that's being held in that trust account on behalf of the landlord, and that is the rent payment, whether it's being paid for 1 month or 6 or 12, then less any authorised expenses, it needs to be transferred across to the landlord. So hopefully that makes some sense, but we've certainly had a lot of questions about that. And it doesn't matter what you're managing, whether it's commercial properties, what you're selling, whether it be residential, industrial, businesses, livestock. If you're holding the money in trust, it's about putting that money. Obviously, with sales, it's being held until settlement day. So that may well, in many cases, it's not going to happen at the end of a month. But that's on landlord instructions, because you've been instructed otherwise that you're holding that money until settlement. So that's how, that particular clause needs to be interpreted for making it work for agents. Yes, it does have a real property management focus on it in terms of, it's actually about money owing to a landlord. But think about it in terms of any money that is in your trust account is in a trust account because it's somebody else's money. And the only way you can disperse that money or give authority as the licensee in charge responsible for the trust account, give authority for that money to be dispersed, is on the instructions of either both solicitors, if it's sales, or instructions from your landlord if it's about your property management, whether doesn't matter what type of property we're talking about there. So hopefully that makes some more sense and has clarified a couple of questions that we've had from some agents this week.